Okay, this screen right here is expressing a particular, well, it has various meanings, but basically this lesson here is to show how each sign would be rising on this horizon line and the timing that that horizon line will indicate. Like each line here is referred to as a house cusp line, which divides the local environments. Each environment, house 1, 2, 3 throughout 12, has everything to do with what we call environmental. All right, and this environment shapes, depending on the time that you were born and what degree that that rising sign is in, will set the motion of the entire chart. So you can reference whatever planet is passing through it by way of degrees, minutes, and seconds, which will be discussed later. Our prime reason today for this lesson is to show the rising and how they rise. So our first rising sign is Aries. As you can see, you have a new rising sign every 2 hours for 24 hours. Each day you have a new rising sign that rises every 2 hours. So let's say the first indication when the rising point is the sun is rising up through this Aries. All right, and you can go a whole month through the signs as it goes through each degree as it's twofold. Now the sun rises and sets. The sun rises and sets in the morning. All right, it sets and then it comes back up, which would, the planets rise this way. So the planets are rising up and then into. Okay, now on terra firma, let's go back for a moment. And set this here. Now on terra firma, we have, depending on longitude and latitude and where you are geographically in the geocentric view, from Earth's perspective looking out into space, the planets rise from this direction up, and it travels this way in a cyclic condition. Now rising points are mainly in the east, but depending on how you're viewing, because from this perspective east is here. All right, but we do know that the planets themselves have a right ascension. So let's consider that if we're considering not rising and setting, all right, depending on your viewpoint of where you're looking at from that perspective, but generally you have the planets rise, all planets rise at right ascension, and then the signs rise like a clock, and it rises in the same direction as a clock. So you have 2-hour intervals. Here's 6 a.m. Here's 2 hours later, 8 a.m. 2 hours later, 10 a.m. and 2 hours later, 12 noon. And then you have 2, 4, 6 p.m., 8 p.m., 10 p.m., and 12 midnight. So the sun is working in two perspectives, depending on how you're viewing it, again, from your geological frame of reference, which gives you a horizon line. But to make it easier for the concept to be calculated and understood, comprehended, you have actually, if you use this as a rising point, then the sun rises and then it sets in the west. Rises in the east, sets in the west, if you're looking at it from this point of view as east. Normally this is east and it's rising, so I would have to really put the map backwards, and this would be the first house and this would be the seventh house. But due to some order that they have that registers each chart, the prime directive here is to understand how the signs rise and how the planets rise opposite to that, the signs, and how they merge according to the degrees, minutes, and seconds. Now, again, this is 6 a.m., 8 a.m., and 10 a.m. So if you have your personal natal birth chart, this sun would, based on what your rising sign is, would indicate what time you were born, and that would put it in these house departments, or would land somewhere in these house departments. For example, if I have the sun, I was born 10:30 a.m. and so 10:37 a.m. so therefore it would be a.m. So my sun would be around here or here, the 11th house, depending on how the house cusp degrees register what degree, what sign, what minutes or seconds that are on the house cusp in your personal natal chart. The sun would land in this department somewhere in here. And so it would give me a Virgo rising. So by that time, 2 hours had lapsed to that point, and then this Virgo would be here on the horizon line. So it would have Virgo rising with a Gemini midheaven, okay, etc. So we'll see if we can show that. So as Taurus rises the next 2 hours, and then Gemini rises the next 2 hours, and this is in the daytime for the first 12 hours of the rising. From rising to setting, it's 12 hours. So you have Cancerian rising, you have Leo rising next 2 hours, you have Virgo rising. Now, so Virgo rising, then it would give me a Gemini midheaven, it would put Pisces on my descendant, and it would put Sagittarius on my medium Colli, or 4th house. So you have 1st house, 10th house, 7th house, and 4th house. Okay? But this is all determined. You have to use concepts to understand what is being presented. So as our next rising sign, oh, by the way, you'll have, which is another factor to consider, whatever your moon sign is in, then it would be at a different phase for that particular day, which would give more or lend more information to what that moon means in your personal natal birth chart. So I threw this in to show you how the phases of the moon are equally important and relating to what the meaning of what that day that you were born on entails, with reference to the moon that you were also born with, along with other planets phasing through the zodiac signs as they cross through the ecliptic or projected onto the ecliptic. And there's a lot to be considered in this reference, but let me bring up a calendar, a moon phase. This particular phase, let's phase this back out so I can show you this reference. I'm working on a little project now that will help me to understand. Okay, right now you have different phases. Now you'll have the new moon, and then it'll go into the waxing crescent as it goes into its first quarter moon, and then it goes into waxing gibbous, and then to the full moon, and then it goes into waning gibbous, goes to its third quarter, and then a waning crescent before it returns back to its new moon. And what's interesting about this is that when you were born, I'm trying to work out a little method here. This is when you were born. You were born with a particular, in your chart. Say like you have Virgo rising, then the moon itself is going to be at a particular time. Let's say you have Aries moon, and then you have in this instance, whatever moon phase it's going through would be indicated by the moon in your natal birth chart. All right, so this is just an idea that's actually can be considered right now. But let's go back. What I did is I went to the and found this site called Moon Phase Calendar, and today happens to be April 12th, 2018. but it gives reference to, let's say, the 12th. On the 12th, today's date, using it as an example, it was in a waning crescent. So it's right before, somewhere before the new moon, which is going to be on the 16th coming up. And so for today, this part of the anatomy that's ruling the waning crescent is we're in the moon Pisces, and so it tells you that that moon emphasizes the feet, toes, pineal and pineal gland in the head. And so it's interesting that, you know, whatever day you were born, you have a particular moon that you're born under. Those that were born on April 11th was born with Aquarius moon, and they have to watch their calves, ankles, skin, and Achilles heel. And you can see the last quarter, you have the new moon coming on the 16th, which is very interesting to look into. So the moon phases have everything to do with a person, regardless of, you know, everyone's born, and they're also going to be born with a certain moon in that effect. So on April 16th, the new moon is going to occur in Aries, right between certain times from 8:51. Then Taurus kicks in. So it has everything to do with the head and the neck, vocal cords, throat, and thyroid. So it looks like it's going into that Taurus effect. And so it's coming out of Aries, so you get 3 days. The transit, usually a transit of the moon, transits by cycle and stays in a sign for 2.5 days. So you'll have, say, Saturday, April 14th, and it will go into Aries, and then it will go the 15th, which is a Sunday, the 15th, waning crescent. It'll still be in Aries. So here's the 2.5 days. The half a day on the 16th will be part of Aries, while it culminates into the beginning of the Taurian. So to emphasize the neck, vocal cords, throat, and thyroid gland, all right, for that particular day, which is interesting. And as you can see, look further, April 22nd, you'll be in the first quarter moon. And so that moon will be in Cancer, Cancerian, and which rules the stomach, the mucus, the mucula, or whatever they call it, the breast, the womb, and the ovaries in a female. So it's just one of the perspectives that is worth looking into. The next full moon after that will be to complete the circuit. The full moon will be on April 30th in Scorpio. The genitalia, anus, urethra, and prostate will be considered during that full moon for those people born or with the persons having that in their natal birth chart. Another perspective in looking at the phases of the moon, as they have influence when a person is born on a particular day. The site that I went to was mooncalendar.astroseek.com in order to get to that information. So I put in moon phases, and you actually have an option to go to any of the moon phases that you like. You can also look up any date, or you can reference your date, okay, how they rise and how planets are also rising into them. So as you can see, if the sun is here and is rising, well, it has to go through 30 degrees. For 0 to 29 is 30 degrees, or 1 month that the transit of the planet will go through. Now the sun goes through 1 degree per day. These are degree points, and that would relate to how that planet is relating to that energy for the first part of spring. Here's the first part of spring, Aries, the second part of spring, Taurus, and the third part of spring, Gemini. As before, it goes into summer, and then autumn, and then winter, spring, back to spring. And that's the setting when you look at from an Earth's perspective, and Earth would be here in the center. Okay, so as we continue, we have Libra rising that next 2 hours. The next 2 hours will be Scorpio. The next 2 hours will be Sagittarius. The next 2 hours will be Capricorn. The next 2 hours will be Aquarius. The next 2 hours will be Pisces, and back to the beginning again from which we started. And these are the hour indications. The longitude points are the hourly positions, or the house cusp positions. And in order to set a natal birth chart based on the time that you were born and the place you were born. So the timing, AM or PM, as you can see, and the geological longitude and latitude points are equally important to set where that horizon line would be, and what degrees, minutes, and seconds in the signs would be placed on these house cusp lines. Okay? This is E.J. Lasassier, Growth Within Your Future Plannings. I'm your cosmic guide as we continue forward. Stay tuned. Okay, looking at the chart in front of you. Now we have several, I've put several concepts together in this picture. First of all, you have an individual chart, and it's a chart that describes 360 degrees around its points. Each section is 1/12 of an entire circle, or 360 degrees. Now, these points relate to the longitude lines that actually establish time. So let me go and get that chart that shows you longitude lines of time. Let's open that with paints. Okay, this is longitude lines of time. Let me see if I can get them both on the same screen. I'll do this now. View. In. Out. Oh, there we go. Now, and then this right here is what I'm going to show you. Okay, so these longitude lines, because I put this together, it's like a synopsis of a few things that you need to do when you do aspects. And being that we're going into our aspect lesson, I designed this structure here to show you a bunch of things that apply to this chart. Okay, so now these, as I mentioned before, there are 360 degrees in a total circle. And the planets arise from this point, from your left hand to your right hand. And as you see, the sun is here. The sun is on this side to show you how on this side is east, and it rises in the east. It rises in the east, and all the planets rise in the east. But we're talking about in particular, while we're learning this, we're talking about the sun. Okay, and the sun, okay, the sun right here, when it enters a sign, it enters, say, from this side. Okay, it goes up and around. This is where it enters, and then it comes around and joins a seasonal condition. We'll say at the Aries equinox. Okay, because at that point, is at the beginning, 0 degrees. Aries is always the beginning, and then Libra is 180 degrees away. Now what I wanted to show you with this, there's several things, and I don't know really how to begin, but let's say that if we're in October, here, this is October, and the sun is shining here, but you can't see the sun because it's shining directly on this sign. Kind of like with this new moon. It's in the glare of the sun, so you won't see the moon at night. It'll be new, but you won't see it because of the glare of the sun. Over here it's full, you can see a full moon. Because the opposite of Libra, in any sign, let's say its opposite would be full. So here's the Libran sun, and here's the full moon in Aries. Okay, the opposites always show. If we're in, let's say, Scorpio, the opposite sign will be Taurus, right here. Okay, opposites, Gemini, and then you follow this longitude line straight up to Sagittarius. Okay, but while we're on longitude lines, let's look at this map. This chart. Okay, now this chart shows you sunrise, and don't be confused, but the seasonal signs rise up as if it was east. It rises in the east. This would be rising point, and by reflection you see the opposite sign, so therefore you consider this east, as these signs are rising in the east and setting in the west. But the planets rise in the east and set in the west, so it's a little confusing. But we're only working with a flat two-dimensional plane, and you can't see the three-dimensional condition, so you have to work on a lot of stuff in between dimensions. But just know that the signs rise east, rise. It can't come down, it rises from this way. So you have 0 to 29. Okay, alright, here's 0 to 29, and you have 360 degrees, right? So when the sun comes in, when this sun transits this chart, alright, it looks like it transits the chart, but actually the Earth is tilted on its axis, and it's going tilted on its axis at 23.5 degrees, along with the celestial sphere tilted at 23.5 degrees too. There's a lot of things, and I should stick with one thing first so you're not confused. But being that we're talking about longitude lines within a 360 degree circle, then I can bring in you the timing chart. Because here's where the signs rise. From 0 to 29 degrees, that would be descriptive of Aries, within a 360 degrees vacuum. It's a vacuum that contains every frequency and every vibration that is operative in that vacuum. So you have 0 here to 29, and then you have Taurus at 29 to 59. Then you have Gemini at 60 through 89. Okay, and let me show you this. And then you go on with Cancer 90 through 119. So how did I get that? Well, let me show you when I have another chart. Try to get all these charts right so I can show you what's going on. Oh, here it is. I have a universal chart. We'll open with paints. Okay, then we got to bring this in. Astro Prep Future Keys Productions. Growth is in your future plannings. And my name is E.J. Lasassiere, and I'm your cosmic guide. Okay, but okay, now I'm showing you the difference between let's get these maps out of the way for a second, and we're on this side now. Okay, so let's bring this up and this in so that you can see, we can match these things so you can see the difference. Alright, Now, as you see, this is a chart. This right here is a chart, and it covers every degree within the 360-degree circumference of a circle. And we'll start off with, like, let's say, we'll say that this is 0. This is Aries. 0 degrees equals 0 throughout 29. Now, there's 29 degrees to a sign. So, and then you start off with 0 through 29. And then you go to the next sign. You go to Taurus. Now, when Taurus starts, the 29th degree, that's why you always hear me say 29. Because 30 is the 0 degrees of the next sign, and that's Taurus. So 0 starts its beginning degrees at 30, because it's working around a 30-degree circumference of a circle. So when the sun enters each sign, it enters at the beginning of each sign at 0 degrees, but as it progresses throughout 360 degrees, it actually follows suit. So 0 of the next sign equals 30 degrees. Alright? So if we go from Taurus, and that goes all the way to 29 degrees, and that equals 59 degrees. Right? And 60 is your next degree. But you don't put 60 because it's only 29 degrees or 30 degrees to a sign. So let's go up here again. And the next sign is Gemini. So it's the sun enters at 0 degrees of that season, and then, you know, to progressively move forward within the 360 degree vacuum, now 0 degrees in Gemini is 60 degrees. So that is a mathematical calculation right there. That means 0 equals 60. When the sun is entered 0 degrees of Gemini, it is actually 60, is entering the number 60 that relates to the degree of within the 360 degree pattern. Okay, so let me show you the other side. Okay, let me show you this first. So when I mentioned that, it's 0 degrees, and then you go to 0 to 29, and then Taurus is 30 to 59, and then Gemini is 60. Alright, so it goes throughout the whole 360 degree map like that. But look what Pisces ends up with. 0 degrees, when the sun is passing through Pisces, 0 degrees is actually 330 on the 360 degree chart. It's 330. Alright, now here's 29 degrees of Pisces, and here it is equal to a spot like that. Okay, 359. So where's 360? 360 is back to Aries. Back to Aries. Because that starts the whole cycle all over again. 360 is the beginning. So when they say Aries is the beginning and the end, that's what they mean. It's the end, and then it's a new beginning. Okay, so 360 degrees as a circumference is in a vacuum of 360 degrees. So let me zoom out. Let's zoom out. Okay, let's zoom out so I can get the other picture in. And so now, with reference to the chart, see, because we're going to be doing calculations, and now we're going to be doing we're doing aspects, and that deals with numbers, degrees of numbers. So that's why it's important to bring this up, so you can show you the difference. Okay, so let's say that we start, and I designed this thing so I was able to show you. Okay, let's say that we start off with Aries. Okay, now Aries is rising in its degrees. Okay, and now the next sign comes up, and that's Taurus. As Aries rises, whatever is on this horizon line is your rising. Okay, Taurus is rising at this particular time, right? And this movement occurs every 2 hours. So when a person comes in and they're born, they may end up with a different rising and a different midheaven. That's why astrologists tell you the rising sign and the midheaven is so important. Okay, so as the next sign is Cancer as it rises, all right? And you see the degrees that it's rising in. When a planet is crossing over those degrees, they're entering those degrees. So whatever degree that was in your, say you're Cancerian, whatever degree you were born on and on that day is entering a particular degree in between these numbers, 90 and 119, because 120 starts Leo. So you have to be born, if you're Cancerian, you're born in between one of these degrees. Okay, when the planet Sun enters your sign in your month. Okay, and that creates whatever timing that is, based on the timing, will indicate what your rising sign will be. Okay, but these are rising signs. No one shows you this because they assume that everyone knows this, but no one knows. And that's so I'm going to teach it. I'm teaching it. And so now Virgo is rising. Okay, when you have Virgo rising, okay, here, for example, I'm a Cancerian. I was born between one of these degrees. Okay, my sun is in 21 degrees Cancerian. I have a Virgo rising because here it is. The sun entered in this house. Okay, in this house department. Okay, at 21 degrees. Okay, of Cancerian. And so let me see if I have a chart. Oh man, where's my chart? This chart here, 21 degrees Cancerian, right? So Cancerian would be, based on the rising, it would put a degree of the sun on this from 1 to 20 to 30, right? It would put, yeah, because there's only 30 degrees to a sign. Okay, this is only a register for how it relates to the 360 degrees. But right here, you would go from where I showed you on this chart. Okay, I'm going to show you again. Take you to Cancerian so we don't get confused about this. You know, it can be confusing. There's a lot of things to consider. Okay, so let's go down to Cancerian. And here, when the sun enters Cancerian, it enters at 90 degrees. So it's saying that if I was born at 21 degrees of it, then that equals 111. You see? So it still falls in between 90 and 119. It would be 111. You just have to know where the sun is in the 360 degree chart to indicate how it contrasts. All right? Because there's only 30 degrees to a sign. Let's get that straight. But as it's moving, the sun is moving through its 360 degrees, it ends up progressively at 90 degrees, even though it's 0 degrees, it's 90 degrees because it has to go through 30 degrees. Okay, on its way to 360. So if I was born at my sun is in 21 degrees Cancerian, then that means it equals 111, and that 111 ends up here in your chart, which gives me a Virgo rising. Okay, and that's what it means when you do a chart. Okay, the rising points is everything. It means everything. Here we get the next sign, the Libran rising, and so forth. Now here's Aries at its opposite pole. Now when the sun is shining in Aries, it's actually Libra that you see. Because it's too bright, the sign is too bright to look into the sun to see the actual sign, so you see the opposite sign.
at that particular time of its rising, right? You would think Aries would be rising, but no, Libra is rising with its opposite sign in the sun that you can't see. And it's a little confusing. That's why you have to have these concepts of understanding. You have to understand that the signs rise from the left hand up to the north, and then fall again to the east. The planets rise up from the left, up and below, up to the right, towards north, and they enter the signs at whatever degree that they're starting out with. So if the sun is rising up here, okay, then whatever point is on that's coming up, it's rising. It's intermixing with the degrees. So you have the planets, whatever cycle they're going through, they're intermixing with the degrees of the seasons based on 360 degrees. And that's what creates, let me bring this down, that's what creates individuality. Okay, the individual person born under a particular degree. Okay, so let's get back to the original map that I have to show you. So I think you have some understanding of how this is happening here, right? There's a lot in this story. All right, the signs rise, and then they rise in these degrees based on the sun spinning 360 degrees total. That's what these little lines are about in your chart. Each line is 1 degree. So if it's rising in Aries, that first degree, that 0 degrees is right there. And then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on up. So it reaches 29. Then it goes, when the next sign rises, let's see if I can bring that up again. No, it's not going to do it for me. It will do it for me on here. Right, where is it? Right there. Oh, right there. Okay, so when the next sign rises, let's say we're in Aries. Let's get back to Aries. Okay, so when the next sign rises here, then you have this 0 degrees right here. But it's actually 29 degrees. Let's see if I can blow this up a little. It's actually 29 degrees here. And so the sun will come through after it finished going through the months of Aries. It'll come here, and then it'll enter 0 degrees Taurus, which is the 30th degree coming out of Aries, and then it'll say 29 through 59 degrees, because each sign equals 30 degrees. And then it'll go and start at 0. When the sun is passing through, this is rising, and it'll rise at one of those degrees until it's finished its degree. Then it'll go into Gemini. See, it's finished right here. So the sun is entering. Now this season right here, the sun is entering the next sign at 0, but it's equal to 60 degrees throughout. It's 29 degrees, which is 89 right here. Okay, but as you see, understand that as the sun goes through these seasons, you could see them astrologically. You know, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini is spring. That's when you have springtime. Okay, as we enter the next sign rising, then you see summer appearing. Now this is summertime, because 0 degrees, the 0 degrees equinox marks the beginning of summer, just like the 0 degrees of Capricorn marks the beginning of winter. That's an equinox. These are 2 equinoctial points. The solstice. Solstice and equinox. These are equinoxes. Aries and Libra is equinox. Let me correct that. And Cancer and Capricorn are solstices. Okay, so when it enters the Cancerian 0 degrees, it enters a solstice summer. Okay, solstice winter. Okay, and these are spring points. All right, this is winter and this is spring. This is autumn and this is spring. This is autumn and this is spring. Okay, let me get it right. Okay, so to reiterate, you'll have when Cancerians are rising, all right, you'll have that, you can see this, the seasons there. This is the Cancerian solstice, and it starts at 0 and goes through at 90 degrees, as I showed you on the 360 degree chart. See if I can pull it up, if it's available. Yeah. Okay, so here it is at Leo at 120, and then it goes through all degrees equaling 23, because it starts at 0 equaling 120 on the 360 degree chart, and then it goes through 29 degrees, and that 29 degrees is 149 on the universal 360 degree chart, because everything is in a vacuum in 360 degrees, circumference of a 360 degrees. So all of the energies are interacting within a circumference of 360 degrees. And so you'll have every interaction within those degrees, from 0 degrees to 359 degrees. All right? And every person that's born on this planet is born in a degree, in a sign, and then that promotes the individuality of a person. Okay? So you'll see the rising signs, they rise. The next one is Leo, 120 through 149. Okay, let me blow that up so you can see it. 120 through 149. You'll have the next rising sign is Virgo, 150 through 179. Okay. You'll have Libra at 180. Now, if 0 is the beginning, then 180 is the opposite, or 180 degrees. So let me show you something else, 180 degrees. All right, on this chart, when you have an aspect, because we're going into aspects, all right, being that we're at the 180 mark, here's a conjunction. When you have a new moon, that is a conjunction point. And then the opposite side of that is 180 degrees. Now, if you know anything about mathematics, you'll know 2 pi r is 2 circles of 180, equaling 360 degrees. So half of pi is 180. The other half of pi is another 180. So 180 and 180 is 360. See? So that's 2 pi square or whatever, algebra. And so then you'll have the opposite from one point, which is 0, and the other point, which is 180. Okay? And then the same with the top. You'll have 90 degrees at, 190 degrees here and 90 degrees here, because there's 90 degrees of latitude here and 90 degrees of latitude here. 180 degrees. 99 is 18, 180 degrees. But the total dynamics is 360 degrees. So as you can see, if they really taught this stuff to us correct in school, we would already have our maps. We would already know what we're all about. We would know how to differentiate and put our maps together to find where we are in this thing called life. All right, we would have this together already. But they choose not to teach us the correct idea of this. They left it to ourselves to learn, and then they gave us all this phony information that we're going by. Right? My idea is to show you how this works. this mechanism, these concepts, because it's the concepts that are confusing. A lot of people don't really want to get into this because of concepts, and you have to understand which way things are going. It's the gears. These gears interchange like clocks. Okay? Now, if you notice, the signs are moving in the same way a clock does, but the planets always operate counterclockwise to time. You have the signs rising with time, and the planets rising against or counterclockwise to time. Alright, so now these little symbols here, as you get into aspects, you'll see that these symbols are most important. These most important aspects. Okay, you have a conjunction, okay, a semi-sextile, a semi-square, a sextile, a square, a triangle, an in conjunction, and an opposition. And they repeat backwards down here and below until they return back to the original. And I'll show you this on another chart. Hopefully I have it. Where's my other chart? Let me see if I can get it for you to show you. Because we're going to go into aspects, and you're going to need to know this. I'm trying my best to explain it. I'm putting it together myself. Okay, let's blow this up. Alright, now this is aspects. Growth, or AstroPrep, Future Keys Productions. Growth is in your future plannings. My name is E.J. Lasassier, and I'm your astrological cosmic guide. Alright, so here you have the chart which indicates how many degrees set or construct an aspect symbol. Right? This symbol relates to an aspect. Now, anywhere from 0.0 throughout 10 degrees, and I'll explain this or orbital distance, that's the frequencies that are still in effect as this is going into this conjunction phase. So there's 10 degrees of this orbital effect that still gives the dynamics of being a conjunction. Alright, here you have a semi-sextile. Alright, and that equals 27 degrees through 29 degrees with a 2 degree orb. So that means that the interaction, and I'll just go semi-square, this is the symbol for semi-square, and that's 40 through 45 with a 5 degree orb, or orbital influence that is still effective. Here's 60 degrees. 30 and 30 is 60. So that would be a 60 degree. If you have a planet from 30 and it's another 30, then it equals a sextile aspect. Alright? If it's at a 40 degree through 45 degree, then it's at a semi-square aspect. You'll learn how, I'm just introducing you to these symbols and how they may relate, or they do relate, to aspects, because that's our next lesson. But I'm trying to introduce to you, coming from a previous lesson, where now you're putting the decanates together, the 10 degree differences, and how the planets are designated. Each planet designates a certain 10 degrees that rules a particular sign within that month. Well, this is the progression of the decanates. This is called aspects. Okay? And aspects are the degree difference between one point and then the other point. Alright? And then you have to calculate that within 360 degrees. So we left off at 60 degrees, and 60 degrees is 56 through 59, or 59 degrees, with a 2 degree orbital effect. Because 60 degrees is a good aspect of it's a sextile. It's a great aspect. Okay? You have a couple of good aspects here. You have a trine, alright? You have a conjunction, you have a sextile. These are really good aspects. Okay, the next sign is a challenging aspect. a 90 degree. Okay, this is a 45 degree, this is a 30 degree, 0 degrees. If you could see, it's still within 360 degrees, right? But in aspects, you can't go beyond 180 degrees. You can't go beyond that first circle of pi. Okay, so now we're discussing the square. The square equals 90 degrees. So you'll go from anywhere from 80 through 90 with a 10 degree orbital vibrational frequency that registers the square aspect. Okay, that says that we're still in aspect to that 90 degree, and that square is still in effect. Okay, you'll see how these equal words, but the breakdown is, okay, math equals symbols and symbols equal words. Okay, so this is the ancient way. This is what, when you were in Africa and the Africans were actually knowing how to relate to the stars, then this was the mathematics that went with it. Okay, so now you'll have a trine. The next symbol is a trine, 120 degree aspect. It's called a trine, T-R-I-N-E. And it relates to 110 through 120 degrees with a 10 degree orbital effect. That means it's still in effect after it leaves 120 by 10 degrees. Okay, and when you have, say, the moon in your chart, when you break down your aspects, you'll have the moon, say, trine, say, your Mercury. Okay, if it says something like that, moon trines your Mercury, then your moon is trining. It's 110 degrees, between 110 and 120 to relate to that aspect. And then with a 10 degree orb, whether it's going into it or coming out of it, then I'll show you later the calculations that go with that. But first, we have to get this. All right, my idea is explaining this. All right, so I'm stumbling too. But once I refine this with myself, I'll be able to show you a lot more. All right, I just have to bring this out of my mind so I can teach it and then show you even better the skills. Right, it's just bringing it out of the subconscious into the conscious, and that takes something you have to do it. You have to actually do it to see how it's coming out. All right, so now the quincunx, it has two names, quincunx and an inconjunct. And an inconjunct aspect looks like this, but it equals 150 degrees, and it starts at 146 through 154 with a 4 degree orbital effect, actually coming in or going out. And I say that because I want you to keep that in mind, because the effects, when you have, like, how would I explain that? When you have lights coming, or a train, let's say a train is coming and you see it down the track, or you see the lights coming down the track right from where you are, but you see a little light. Now as it moves forward towards you, that light gets brighter and brighter until it's upon you. Now as it's leaving, you see the caboose lights. It's bright at first, and then it's leaving. That's the same effect that these aspects do. They come in, and then as they refine, they come closer. Then it comes closer to the aspect degree, like 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, 120 degrees, 150 degrees, or 180 degrees. All right? And it operates the same way as light. If it's coming down a track, you could see it from a distance, and then it's almost to you. That's relating to an orbital point where you can still, it has some effect, but not as much as effect as if it's right at that degree or right on you. then you see it bright. You see the big train. You see what it was, because you couldn't see too much at a distance. You know it's a train, but now it's on you. You see it's a train. Okay, and then as it leaves, you can only see little by little. It disappears in the horizon. Well, the planets do the same thing. They come, they aspect each other. They come around in their cycles, and they enter a certain degree, and it enters at a wee degree where it's kind of like in orb, but not as effective. And then it's coming in, and then it gets to a point where it's starting to take effect, and then it gets to that point where it's effective, and that's where you can translate it. That's where you translate it into something that can be it could be, advantageous to you. It could be a planning apparatus to see where you're at with reference to where that and how that degree with reference to that planet or those planets are affecting you. Okay? This is self-analysis. This is being your own master. This is mastering yourself. If you can master whatever you go to school to do, you can master yourself. And this is the tool to do it. It's just that society has warned you against it. It's warned you against it so you don't get to know who you are. So they can keep using you over and over and over again. But once you know who you are, they can't mess with you. They won't know who you are. They won't know how to mess with you. Okay? But when you don't know who you are, they can make you do anything. They'll make you toe the line. Whatever powers in system, that's what they're going to make you do. And you think you're doing the right thing because you're following whatever the trend is. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. You're an internal spirit trapped into a physical body made to do things that you don't really want to do. And then you're made to think you want to do them because this is the only course of event that you can follow. Alright, so this is all a part of the Aquarian age. I'm just giving you an advanced course on what this is about. Okay? Now, it takes time. It's not something you can just jump in. I mean, if you're intelligent, you can probably comprehend what's going on. Alright? But let's get back to our chart. I don't want to get too far off the mark. Alright, so let's get back to showing you what's in this picture that I presented in front of you, right, on this graph. And that is that, again, the signs are going up, rising, in a particular degree relating to 360 degrees. And whichever, like let's say, for example, the sun is in 1 degree per day. Now, when you have a birthday and it's at a degree that you were born at, then a year later, you're going to have a birthday. A year later, you have a birthday because the sun has transited and made 1 cycle around from that point in which you were born at. And that's called a birthday. Okay, but that's the sun sign. That's called sun sign. But they haven't gone deep enough to even relate to you how deep it is. The sun signs are at a particular decadent or a particular degree that relates to other things. And that relationship gives you your individuality. Everyone is not the same. Everyone is individual even though they fall under one of these sun signs. Okay? And it's really a deep dynamics that you really need to get a hold of. Alright? If you're lazy, lazy-minded, forget it. You'll never get into it. You have to have a yearning. You have to have a yearning to want to know who you are. In order to know who you are, you got to know that you need to progress. You need to progress. All right? If you're in kindergarten, I'll use a simple example. But if you're in kindergarten How the heck are you going to get it out of kindergarten if you don't do kindergarten stuff? Now, if you got out of kindergarten, it's because you did all kindergarten stuff. Now you went to first grade and you did first grade stuff. Now you went to you're in high school. You're in 8th grade. Now, if you're doing 8th grade stuff, then you're going to go to 9th grade. All right? In the universe, if you know yourself, the more you know yourself, the more you progress to the next level. They're not telling you that because they got you glued to material. They got you glued to this material existence that doesn't relate to when you have to leave. And when you leave, you can't take any of that material with you. You can't even take you with you. So your spirit is the only thing that you're going to be able to take. And I mean, if that frightens you, that's the reality. That's reality. Okay, you can't deal with reality. That's your problem, not mine. But the point is, this is the real map. Okay, into yourself. This is the real map into yourself. And if you can learn this, you can be a better spirit. The next time you come in, you'll be more advanced. It's like you went to college, you went to doctorate school, you became a doctor, you got a PhD, you got several PhDs, MDs, whatever, high altitudes that you accomplished in life. But did you learn who you are? Because that's part of a degree. And if you don't register those degrees of knowledge and consciousness in this life, you're going to come back and go around the same rung again until you learn those universal lessons. So that's why this map is designed, and you'll see more of it as you get to the Aquarian age, and how important it is for your spirit to be conscious of itself. Alright, so let's get back to the cause of events. So I have many things in this picture. Alright, but the first things I need you to understand, and I know I'm repeating this many times, but okay, the signs rise up from the left hand east upward, and then the planets rise east coming the opposite way. And you'll understand that because whatever the sun is shining in, right, is going to be the opposite sign that you see from. It's like a parallax. All right, you're on Earth and you're seeing a parallax, or parallax is like looking through water. Sometimes you don't see it straight. It comes in crooked. Okay, when you look through water, you don't see straight down in water. It curves. Okay, so when you're looking into space, you're seeing not straight. You're seeing in a curve. That's why when they take a rocket ship into space, they got to go around the planet first and orbit it before they can even jettison to the next level to go even further out. All right. All right. So, all right. These symbols, back to the symbols, because I really want to introduce you to aspects, and that's why I threw those in. These aspects have everything to do with where these planets are and how they're interacting. In a future lesson, you're going to see how the sun will interact with your moon, or you'll see how your sun will interact with your Venus, and how it will go through all the dynamics of a conjunction. Let me bring up that chart again. Let's see, so I can give it to you correctly. Where's my chart? Okay. It will go through all the dynamics of a conjunction, a semi-sextile 30 degrees, a semi-square 45 degrees in its symbol, a sextile 60 degrees, a square 90 degrees, okay? And just so that you understand what I'm saying, let's say the moon or the sun, let's say the sun is in square or sextile to your Venus. Okay? Sun, sextile, Venus. Okay, so that means that sextile is a 60-degree aspect between your sun and your Venus. And that just knowing that, as I mentioned, math turns into symbols, symbols turn into words, okay, and words translate into what you need to know. Okay, we're looking at an ancient computer here. It's a very, very ancient computer. And this relates to how you relate to things. And once you have the right tool to know and to help you to understand yourself, it'll be so much greater. Let me give you another example. You have the sun, okay, and I will use another aspect, conjunct, which means that it's directly on that from 0 to 10 degrees, your Pluto, okay? And that's another planet that's in your chart, a Pluto. Pluto is your power. You'll have the sun is vitality, Mars is raw energy, and Pluto is power, is your power. Those are your generators in your body, okay? And so when that sun relates to a positive connection to Pluto, that means something, okay? And the delineation of that is in words that will help you to understand how that energy is applied inside yourself, how that applies inside yourself, and whether you are reacting to it or even conscious of it. Okay? A lot of people are just, going through rote. They're going through life, rote, day after day, and getting in these cycles of behavior, thinking that they know who they are. They don't. So this is lessons to teach you if you're really interested in getting deeper into yourself. Now, where we left off is the trine aspect. Okay, let's say that sun is trining your moon. Then it would be 120 or 110 through 120 with a 10-degree arb. These are aspects. This lesson is all about aspects and how one planet affects another planet in your natal birth chart. Okay, now the other aspect is a 150 inconjunct or quincunx. Those two words you can use those, the same. And quincunxes go from 146 through 154 with a 4-degree orbital effect. And I explained to you what orbital effect is, like the train coming from a distance and coming halfway to that, and then all the way, and then leaving, and then going halfway from leaving to all the way leaving till you can't see it anymore. Those are orbital effects. And that vibration frequency has everything to do with how it influences you. Okay, and our last opposition. Now you have our last aspect is the opposition because it reaches 180 degrees. Now in calculations, you can't go beyond. You have to work the shortest distance within 180 degrees in order to do calculations to have them come out to an aspect. Okay, you can't go completely around the 300 and 300. You just use 180 as a reference point. Okay, and within doing the calculations in 180, you go the shortest distance between each point. Okay, and again, this is something that you've never heard of before. Okay, never heard of before. This is all new stuff. This is all Aquarian stuff. Okay, this is the age of Aquarius stuff that I'm teaching, not Piscean age. Piscean age is all elusive, delusive. They want to trick you. They want to tell you fairy tales. They want to tell you stories. They don't want to tell you the truth. They want to hold you in bondage. They want to think that you have all these sins, and you don't. You don't have nothing. They make you think you do. The sins that you make is the things that you have to make up. The things that you do, there's no one coming to relieve you of your sins. You have to relieve yourself of your sins. Okay? So don't get tripped up into that mess, because we're going to be past that point soon. And then you're going to need to know the right information. Knowing is better than believing. Okay? If you know something, it's not believing in something. It's knowing in something. Okay, so these lessons are brought to you by AstroPrep Future Keys Productions. Growth is in your future plannings. My name is EJ Lasassier, and I'm your cosmic guide. Okay, so let me see if I covered everything in this map. Okay, I spoke about the 360 degrees. I spoke about the signs going through the 360 degrees. I also brought in the symbols as an introduction and into aspects. Okay, bringing you deeper into the subject of aspects and how the planets are aspecting each other and presenting a different vibrational frequency. And also now I'm going to bring you into the moon phases. Okay, now the moon is out there going around in different phases, right? You have a moon phase. Moon phases phase the earth. They go around the earth. Okay, and here's something. Let me just bring this up. Okay, here's a moon phase diagram. Okay, now you have a moon phase. Okay, because moon phases have everything to do with the emotions on this planet. Emotions have everything to do with this planet. All right, people move away. They try to get away from emotions, but you can't. We're emotional creatures. And so you have to get familiar with what your emotions are all about. Okay, and so that moon is just not hanging up there in space for no reason. It's there for a reason. And then we go through these phases. We go through from new moon to waxing crescent moon. We go from first quarter moon to waxing gibbous moon. Then we get a full moon. Now the full moon is always opposite the sign that you were born in. If you're a Capricorn, then your opposite is Cancer. If you're Cancer, your opposite is Capricorn. If you're Leo, your opposite is Aquarius. If you're Aquarius, your opposite is Leo. If you're Pisces, your opposite is Virgo. If you're Virgo, your opposite is Pisces. If you're Aries, your opposite is Libra. If you're Libra, your opposite is Aries. If you're Taurus, your opposite is Scorpio. If you're Scorpio, your opposite is Taurus. If you're Gemini, your opposite is Sagittarius. If you're Sagittarius, your opposite is Gemini. And that completes that circle. So the moon travels through these energies, and when it reaches its opposite, it's a full moon. So you're in one season. If you're in a season, you can expect a full moon in that season, or in the week of that season, because then you're going to get a full moon. Okay. Then you go from full moon to waning. So now you're coming out of dynamics. It's building, then it comes full. Then it starts going from the dynamic of full to waning. So you have waning and waxing. Wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax off. Think about that. Then you have the waning gibbous. And then you get the third quarter moon, a waning third quarter moon, and then you get the waning crescent, and then you back to new moon again. But if you look at the clock, all right, you'll see that 9 o'clock on the clock is a full moon. If you look at the clock, the time clock, you'll see 3 o'clock is the new moon. If you look at 12 on the clock, you'll see that is the first quarter moon. And if you look at 6 on the clock, that is the third quarter moon. Okay? And the first 1 o'clock, after 3, 1 o'clock is the waxing crescent. 8 o'clock is the waning gibbous. 5 o'clock is the waning crescent. 11 o'clock is the waxing gibbous. and these interplay in your chart, because you'll have, what moon were you born under? First of all, that's a question. What moon were you born under? Was it one of these, was it a full moon? Was it a new moon? Was it a waning crescent? Was it a waxing gibbous? Was it a waxing, what was it? A third quarter moon? Was it a first quarter moon? Because there was a moon in effect when you were born. What was it? And that's why I put this here, because it's equally important to understand where that moon was when you were born, and how it's interplaying in the dynamics of your energy patterns. Okay, so I think that's a wrap for today's lesson. Alright, I gave you a bit much, and I have to go back to review it to see if even, I'm explaining it correctly, and make adjustments so that I get this lesson off to you. That's it. EJ Lasas here. Astro Prep Future Keys Productions. Growth is in your future plannings. And I'm your Cosmic Guide.